Hey everyone, this is Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 184 of Album of the Day, in which after a little break that I took last weekend, I'm finally back to do another review, and today's artist is a Los Angeles-based singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist who for a long time has gone under Ariel Pink's Haunted Graffiti, as that not only was the musical project he was doing, but also sort of the accompanying band that he had with him. But for the past few records that he's put out, he now just goes by Ariel Pink and is pretty much credited as a solo act now. And he's one that never really had big commercial success or anything like that, but he's been one that's been long and has been long adored by critics as well as fans, and fans especially over his previous record Pom Pom, which was released in 2014 on 4AD Records. And now I'm here to review the follow-up to that record, which was released on September the 15th, 2017, and the album is called Dedicated to Bobby Jameson, and as you can see I have the vinyl right here. I got this for Christmas this year, because I really love this album, and it's one of my favorite records of 2017. In fact, it made it into the number 34 spot on my top 50 albums of 2017, which 34 is definitely a pretty cool number, in my opinion, for year-end lists. This album isn't on 4AD, the label he was signed to for his last record. He's now signed to independent psychedelic record label called Mexican Summer, which is also the label for artists such as Waves Blood, who was recently featured on the excellent Perfume Genius record from 2017. And spine and the back. That's like a photo of Ariel Pink right there. Looking kind of mysterious, pitchfork in his hand, pretty much. Like the artwork sort of reminds me a little bit of old school horror movies, with the photo of Ariel right there, as well as the haunted house in the background of the album cover, in which the kind of horror psychedelic inspired art for this album was actually designed by Robert Betty, who's also done work for Tame Impala and OCs for album covers and whatnot. Really cool psychedelic artist. Definitely recommend his work. There's another photo of Ariel Pink looking into like Jesus on a cross. And there's liner notes. There's 13 tracks. It's over 36 minutes long. And there is a additional bonus track called Revenge of the Iceman that's not featured on the vinyl, but it's probably on the digital version, which you can probably get on iTunes or stream on Spotify or something like that. The liner notes at the bottom, it looks like it could either be thank yous or it could be some of the musicians that played on the album, because Ariel Pink's name is actually listed down here along with a bunch of other musicians. So yeah, I think it could be musicians who played on the album. And this is on beautiful blue vinyl. And there's side A. And then here we have side B. And it does sound great on vinyl, by the way. Alright. There we go. Yeah, so you want to be careful when you try to put a vinyl back in. Yeah, and just beautiful pink artwork. It sort of fits with the whole Ariel Pink sort of name. That's the packaging for Dedicated to Bobby Jameson, the latest record from Ariel Pink. Yeah. And, like this album, as you can see for the title, it is sort of a concept album a little bit, as it is a record that sort of looks into the life of a legendary rock and roll singer-songwriter by the name of Bobby Jameson, who was around in the 1960s a little bit, but kind of disappeared from the spotlight until around like mid-2000s or something like that, where he started making like rants and stuff like that on the internet, which apparently Ariel Pink did a little research on him by, watching some of his like YouTube rants and whatnot, and this is sort of about how Ariel sort of relates to this character in a way because of his traits of how he really was out there, how he was this really kind of an out there sort of dude, pretty much, or sort of dude, and dude who sort of rediscovered sort of his life as well as, kind of like his love and stuff like that, sort of out of death. So sort of like pretty surreal, freaky sort of reincarnation sort of thing, which can be heard on the opening track, Time to Meet Your God, which right off the bat hits us with this simple chord, that instantly pulls you in and instantly becomes catchy. Time to meet your God. It's just so like in your face and like blunt, but it really does a good job of really pulling you in, and sort of doesn't need a whole lot of lyrics to sort of explain its point. How our character, how the story of this character starts out in death, and like it's like time for him to meet his God. And I love how just freaky the instrumental of this song is. Some peppy keyboards and jangly guitars on the sting, but then it eventually does transition into this more sort of melancholy, tense sort of bridge with some kind of whispered vocals, kind of an odd, strange moment in the song before it jumps right back into the really killer instrumental. And it's definitely a song that definitely starts out the album. Really does start out the album with quite a bang. Bang. And then following that we have the song Feels Like Heaven, which is the second single from the record, and it's just some pure like beautiful gothic pop gold right here. I love the peppy psychedelic instrumentation, like the jangly acoustic guitars acoustic guitars, as well as the gorgeous guitars and keyboards. A track that sort of feels like a nice little intimate whisper, which sort of shows him which also sort of deals with death, as it sees our character like drifting off into heaven and stuff like that, but finding love once again, sort of bringing kind of a sense of optimism to this kind of morbid situation that he's in. And I love the hook on this track, with some very nice female backup vocals sung by someone that I can't really name, because it doesn't really specifically say who all sang on the record or played instruments on the album. And also it has this really cool sort of funky keyboard solo in the middle that sounds really nice too. And then we have the Bowie-inspired Death Patrol, which definitely is more on kind of the stranger side, but I love how sort of funky and glammy the instrumentation sounds. The clavinet, the drum machine, as well as that sexy guitar lick in there. As well as a bunch of other strange noises, like some kind of acidic strings, as well as what sounds like some sort of tin can pitched and then played with a violin bow to make it sound really kind of odd and spooky. It's spooky, and I also do really like the sort of off-kilter vocals on the track that are sort of loose and sort of keep in perfect pitch, but not in the way that's like obnoxious or painful to listen to. Listen to as he goes, what do you know? On there. There. However, one moment on the record that I do feel is definitely a major snag here would definitely have to be the song Santa's in the Closet, which, I liked the song the first time I heard it, but the more I listen to it, the more I just get tired of it. The instrumental sounds fine, at first, pretty much, and it's okay, but once the kind of cheesy, once the kind of cheesy vocals come in, things really start sort of getting painful here on this track, and also just a bunch of really kind of eye roller sort of lines that are just so bizarre to the point where it's kind of becomes a bit of a glob of just But this dud doesn't last for too long, thankfully, because following that is one of my favorite tracks on the record, which is the title track, dedicated to Bobby Jameson. I mean, it's got a hook that will really get stuck in your head instantly. And Man of the Sunset Strip. It's just so, catchy, and, it definitely is going to stick with you just about every time you listen to it. And it's just a piece of, 60s, 70s inspired pop gold put through kind of a lo-fi sort of wall of fuzz. Wall of fuzz, and it's got so many cool instrumental elements like the Vox organ, as well as the drums and a really nice rhythm section. The bass and the drums are expertly playing along the melodic guitars and colorful keyboards. It's definitely some pure gold that I think would get plenty of approval from 60s pop legends like, say, Lennon and McCartney. And it's sort of a song sort of tying the whole record together lyrically, because it is sort of about Bobby sort of trying to trying to get it together before he loses his life again. His life again. And then after that we have the very odd choice for the first single on this record, Time to Live, which definitely is kind of one that kind of jumps around all over the place, and one may find it maybe a bit directionless, but me personally, I find its jumping around to be somewhat wonderful, with how it does all kinds of things. At points it sounds like Bowie, and then at points it sounds like I'm sitting through a David Lynch movie with the howls and screams in the background that sound kind of freaky. And then it goes heavy metal with a heavy guitar riff and just angry keyboards. It's definitely a song that kind of shifts in and out with different emotions, whether it be anger or fear or sadness, or maybe a little bit of happiness. like after the kind of angrier section, and it's got a catchy little refrain, time to lie, time to live, that kind of plays throughout the song, and I just love how vocally he's just going insane, like at the beginning where he's just shouting, time to live, live. And then after its sort of 3-minute sort of jam, it eventually goes into lyrics about how you've got to live and to die and to let your life fade away and stuff like that. You must be vigilant and insane to do that. And insane, and it's just a really cool sort of improv sort of jam in the middle of the record that really somehow does a good job of sort of stirring the whole thing together before it has like an odd outro of what sounds like maybe like bells or dulcimer. Like I don't know what I heard at the end, but whatever it is, I'd certainly love to know in the future. Sure. And then we have the other sort of goth pop single here with the song Another Weekend, which is definitely kind of one of the more mellow tracks in the record. It still has plenty of an impact to it. It's sort of a song about sort of falling in love, but then eventually sort of realizing how he's kind of made some mistakes that, may somehow sort of mess up this relationship that he's in. So it's sort of a song that's definitely one of the more introspective moments on here, and I do really like how sort of like the song even is kind of cute sounding and is probably the closest that this album goes to like bubblegum pop or something like that. But it manages to do it so well and not do it in a way that's like corny or anything like that, but in a way that really sort of like it feels like sort of a warm blanket sort of wrapping you around in it, and you can't help but just fall in love with it. And I love sort of strange noises going on in this song. Like there's an odd moment where it sounds like some sort of spoken vocal sample that's like pitched down and then pitched up to make it sound kind of supernatural. And I think I heard beatboxing in the background too. But I also do really like the kind of high-low sort of harmonizing vocals on the track, which is definitely very nice, as well as the nice echo effects at the end. Effects at the end. And then after this, we have a re-recording of an older Ariel Pink song from the Haunted Graffiti era, the song I Wanna Be Young. And this re-recording definitely does sound really cool, and it really is a highlight on the album. I mean, I love his very passionate falsetto vocals on this track, where this is the one song where I feel like he really expresses himself emotionally with his vocal range, which I really do love. Which I really do love. And it goes so well over some peppy, cathartic guitars and keyboards, and really nice rhythm section on there. And a hook that will just get ingrained in your brain for sure. Sure, and sort of tying into the story about how, when he feels old, he just, the character, when he feels old, he just feels like so miserable and just wants to feel young again. So this is kind of an ode to sort of, wanting to feel young again when you're not having as much fun as you get older. And then we have the song Bubblegum Dreams, which starts out with some kind of folky acoustic guitars before it turns into this scuzzed out, visceral sort of pop rock anthem. It sounds like basically all the best of 60s psychedelic rock and pop music put through a beautiful lo-fi fuzz filter. Filter, pretty much. And also, and then when I heard some of the lines about like sex and like falling in love again, I thought I was drugged when I was listening to the song, when hearing the lyrics sort of like referencing candy and bubblegum as like metaphor for like a sexual encounter that that the character in this song is having. And I love all the really cool sort of intricate psychedelic instrumentation, like the sitar and B3 organ, and some twinkling glockenspiel occurs in the hook as well as some kind of 50s doo-wop vocals in the background, just making the song just sound so damn melodic and catchy. And it's definitely one of my favorite moments on here. And it also does feature some odd sounds, including, I think I heard an actual bubblegum pop occur at a couple moments in the song, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then we have Dream Date Narcissist, which sort of, it's like the sequel to this track, but sort of looks at this sexual encounter as like some sort of like mistake that the character has made, and is just sort of, feeling some regret over it. Kind of feeling some regret over it, and just feeling like a narcissist, and like he feels like he's only doing this just to find pleasure in himself and not really in his significant other. So it's got a much more kind of dramatic, melancholy instrumental paired to it. It still manages to be catchy with the guitar riff, as well as really cool pipe organ in the background too. And then following that is like one of my other favorite tracks on the record, Kitchen Witch, which definitely is just again one of the catchiest songs on the entire album. And and it's so beautiful how he sort of brings a female perspective into the play, as the female is sort of channeling this like imaginary like girl or ghost that's like following this sort of supernatural character that's sort of following our main character around. And I don't know who did the part. I did see a few female vocalists credited in the liner notes, like it could be Pearl Charles is one of the backing vocalists credited in the liner notes. So it could be her, or maybe Waze Blood, aka Natalie Merring, or something like that. Something like that. But either way, it's just this little surreal part that really does make the song really shine through as a highlight for sure. It just sounds so beautiful. And then we have Ariel coming in with sort of revealing who that character was that you just heard, and sort of revealing how he's pretty much she's pretty much his like one and only imaginary ghost. Hence the name Kitchen Witch. Then we have the acoustic ballad, Do Yourself a Favor, which definitely is yet another nice little introspective, pretty intelligently written song on the album. It has sort of this, 60s psychedelic folk vibe. It sort of reminds me a little bit of like some of the more psychedelic moments off of like the Beatles' White Album or something like that. But it also has a little bit of an early Of Montreal sort of vibe to it as well. I've heard from, and I love some of the lyrics on here that really do show his sense of poeticism. Do yourself a favor and taste a new flavor. It smells like sage and thyme. As well as the unexpected line of "I can roast you anytime." That's poeticism. That's some nice poeticism right there. There, and I love the instrumentation on here. There's like 12-string guitar on here, as well as maracas and tambourine. Gorgeous Casio organ on the track too, and I really like the whistling on the track too. The whistling on the track too. But probably the most unexpected odd moment on the entire record would have to be on the closing track on the record, Acting, which is kind of a dancey, funky, sexy, sort of Bowie-inspired number that actually has a little bit of a hip-hop and R&B feel to it, thanks to the fact that R&B singer, songwriter, and producer DM Funk is actually featured on the track. And their voices actually blend together really nicely. Ariel Pink's kind of monotone, subtly auto-tuned voice, which this is one case where the auto-tune, believe it or not, actually really works on his voice. So like his kind of monotone delivery on the track, as well as delivery over DM Funk's kind of over DM Funk's like peppy falsetto, just go incredibly well together. Like at that part in the middle where they all sort of collide and sound so beautiful, and it's definitely really catchy. And with the heavy filtering effects on his voice, it sounds as if there's like quotation marks in between each word that he says. Bringing a little bit of optimism to this rather sort of morbid sort of story that he's told throughout the entire LP. Entire LP, and like I said, the instrumentation on this track sounds really nice. Nice, and some really cool additions of female vocals that are added at one point in the song too. And it is like quite satisfying to hear this album end with the line of "We're gonna party till the break of dawn" a few times before it, hilariously goes into an outro of "Happy ending." Happy ending, which is sort of funny how he says that at the end, sort of symbolic of how even, some of the darkest vignettes can have a bit of a happier ending to them. So yeah, I definitely overall really like this record. I do think it is definitely wasn't too bad of an intro to Ariel Pink. I've heard it sort of sounds like what he used to do with the Haunted Graffiti material, but just a little more polished, but still with plenty of lo-fi scuzz to, keep things like not too overproduced. So I'm definitely going to give this album an 8 out of 10. Highly recommend you check it out. If you're into sort of 60s psychedelic pop and rock sort of sound, and you're sort of missing that, this is like a perfect album for you. So that's my review of the new Ariel Pink record dedicated to Bobby Jameson. I'll see you for episode 185.